Today I messed up for telling my dad it's time to euthanize him. Little backstory, I live in Belgium where we have fairly solid euthanasia laws. Without knowing all the details, it basically requires a lot of paperwork and a couple of signatures, in our case my sister and myself, and a third witness, and all this needs to be renewed every 5 years. It's basically a will/permission that gives my sister and I the authority to decide in his name, i.e. respect his wishes, if he is no longer able to himself. Last June he had a stroke at age 77 and has since mostly recovered. Accordingly we discovered that the paperwork needed to be renewed around this time of the year. My sister is the principal contact on the paperwork and as such she was going to take care of it, like she has always done before. She is a school teacher and this morning the schools are opening again, so the past weeks have been a bit hectic for her. Last night I went to bed around 3 a.m. and this morning shortly after 8 a.m., while still sleeping, I get a call from a city clerk. The paperwork was still missing the signature of my dad, and apparently she had been trying to contact my sister to no avail. So she reached out to me before it expires and gave me an appointment in about 2 hours from now. My dad recently became my neighbor, and is usually already awake this time of the day sitting in his office. So still somewhat sleeping I put on pants and walk over to his house. Oddly enough he is still sleeping so I wake him up, which requires specialized skills. Huh, what? Wake up dad, huh? Oh, it's you? Huh, what they called for your euthanasia, we need to be there at 11h15, am still not fully awake. He looks totally bemused at me, sits on the bedside for a couple of seconds and gives me this look of utter defeat and says, well crap, that's fast. To which I say, well we still have more than 3 hours, so no rush, I'll pick you up around 11, see ya. He mumbles totally disappointed, 3 hours and you gonna leave me alone? At which point my penny drops, technically speaking Eurocent, you stay in the car, I pick up the paperwork, you sign it, I return it and we are good again for 5 years, turns out my sis forgot something. Never seen him being more relieved before in my life. Turns out he had been dreaming about it in some way or form and me putting it like that made it all a little bit too realistic for him. TL, doctor while being sleep drunk I woke up my dad and told him we get to do his euthanasia later this morning. He took it a bit too literal. Lol, I like how he just accepted it. My time has come I guess. Him, your time has come. Dad, was I a good dad? Him, you were the best. Dad, you know, you kinda remind me of my son. Him, come now, come now. It hurts. It's okay, it won't for long. Come on, time for your euthanasia. My great-grandmother was like this. I knew her but only when it was too late. She always said I looked like my mom's son. Was sad, she was such a nice lady. Wish I got to know her better. All I ever hear about her is how great she was. And how she was a little racist. But she was born in 1910. I love how the end of the comments like she was a little racist but she was born in 1910, so that kinda evens things out. I'm sure your great-grandmother was a nice person though. Yeah, she never really meant to be mean or anything. She just saw stereotypes and didn't understand that saying them outright was rude. It's all about where and how you were raised. My little old aunt was the sweetest person ever, but super racist. A new African-American couple moved in across the street and had a little toddler girl. This of course delighted my very sweet aunt, who loves kids and promptly gathered her supplies to make a cake with me to give to the little girl and her family. When I asked what we were doing, she said something about making a cake for the cute little slur girl across the street, so she could introduce herself. Never even realized she said something awful. I mean, at least she had the best intentions, but man, it proves they are from a different era, but she definitely sounds sweet. She was like 85 at the time, and I was just old enough to know something was wrong with what she just said, but confused because no way did that word just come out of my 85-year-old, doddering lil aunt. Bless, but it shows that she had no negative connotations with it, it's just the word she knew. Still sounds like a class lady for wanting to do nice things for her neighbors. Thank you. She totally was. She was a badass too. She lived in her own house until 97 years old, and then while we were quietly trying to decide how to tell her it was time for her to go somewhere with full-time care, she passed away quietly in her sleep. I like to think she was like, nah, I want to die here, so I'ma do that now. Hers was the happiest funeral I've ever gone to. We never got to see her sick or suffering, and she was making cookies for her neighbors until the end. Well, it is a justification because during those times no one knew any better. Tell that to the rest of Reddit. I think pretty much everyone knew better. It's just they justified it cause hey, everyone else does it. The same way that most people now know sweatshops are bad, global warming is bad, parts of our justice system are bad, etc. But most of us, including me, contribute to the problems because hey, everyone else does it. No need to pretend people back then were all dumb. I think a lot of it is just living with the devil, you know, so to speak. Like their parents were all raised in that way, so they were raised in the same way. They only knew what they were taught. A lot of terms for people of other ethnicities weren't as bad, but still bad, to use back then as they are now, and some of the older generations didn't learn they were horrible at the same rate as others did. Now I'm only using this as an example. I am in no way racist in any shape or form, but how many older gen people have you heard use a word to describe someone of a different race, that's considered a big no-no now, but not even in a derogatory context? I'd say that's like 90% of the time they use those terms. You'll use X as one of those words for an example. Like if Granddad went out to buy something from the market, and there was a person of different race there, they might even use it as part of a nickname. Like I was down at X Jim's place to pick up something for my tractor today. They aren't meaning to sound racist, it's just a word they used to describe to someone who they're talking about, because that was the norm back then. I know that it's not okay to say it, you know it's not okay to say it, but for old Granddad on the farm, that was just an old, yet bad, habit, that wasn't so bad back in the day. Granddad might not even know he said it, and has probably great friends with X Jim. You get what I'm trying to say here? Yes, there are some that are blatantly racist, but some of them aren't trying to be mean, it's just the way they've always spoken. Yes, it needs to change, but like any habit, sometimes it's hard to break and you don't even think about it at the time of speaking. Ha, comedy is tragedy. Also, this law was changed. The exact date of application hasn't been set yet, but the 5-year period will no longer apply. So you'll only have to wake your dad up for his euthanasia one more time. LOL, I see what you did there. And you are correct, the paperwork I got today does not need to be renewed, it stays valid till whenever. Which makes sense because I recall my mom, her paperwork was expired when she was diagnosed with young dementia. Despite her wishes, she was a strong advocate back in the day to legalize euthanasia, and it made her go through 6 to 7 more years of being in a mental state she never wanted to be in. I'm sorry she, and your family, had to go through that. Very happy that the law has been changed. Wish we could get that here in the US. With dementia running in my family, I really wish this was law here in the US. I don't want to live in a world where I don't know my own family. Sometimes I wonder if all this preparation I'm doing for old age, retirement savings, etc., is a waste cause I might be senile by 70 anyway. Maybe I should say F it and live life to the fullest now. Why wait for tomorrow when today is already here? Enjoy the life you have now, but it's not a bad idea to save for the future either. Just don't skip an opportunity to have fun. I'm saving enough to make it to 90, but living life so I hopefully won't. I need to get to a point where I can do both of these things, instead of just the latter. My condolences, Anon. Tragically slightly funny. I found it hilarious, so did he, an hour later. I live in the US and am the power of attorney holder for all medical decisions regarding my parents now that they're getting all of their will set up after retirement. When they signed that paperwork, I made the joke that it was time for me to go ahead and throw my dad in a retirement home or take him off of life support. He's only 62 and looks like he's in his 40s. Keep in mind that this is the type of humor my dad and I share. We've made jokes about putting each other out of their misery for nearly 20 years. Keep in mind that this is the type of humor my dad and I share. We've made jokes about putting each other out of their misery for nearly 20 years. Oh totally. When we went down the stairs on our way to my car he was a little grumpy, rainy day, cold, but grumpy in a funny/sweet way. And I said, well you don't have to come with me if you don't want to, really? I said, yeah I can just trip you and the paperwork goes away. Laughter. My dad to me, yeah with your aiming skills that will most likely end up the other way around so I totally get those conversations. You and your dad seem to have a great relationship. Kudos. Depends who and when you ask. But in all seriousness I love him to death, pun intended. This made my day. Thanks for watching. Comment on what you think was the best part of this video. Subscribing and hitting that notification bell on YouTube is a great way to get our content. You can also watch it on Facebook. A link to our page is in the description. See you soon.